Good.
Yes, so
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back to it. Let the record reflect that it is 8:45. Let's do a roll call, please.
Aaron Crusoe,
Here.
Michael Leonard,
Here.
Juanita Lewis,
here,
Lou Demento,
Here.
Christina Burns,
here,
Barbara Willis,
here,
David Cassidy,
Here.
Frederick Stone.
Here. Mr. Wells, do you have anything else or you want to wrap up? Before we get to the comment section of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just a quick closing statement. Again, we're here seeking conditional use approval as well as site plan approval. We think we've adequately shown that we've satisfied the conditions.
Public make their comments, then you can.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know you asked for,
You don't have anything else?
no, we have no further testimony to add, so
Okay.
that's my only wrap up.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any comments regarding the application, now is the time to come up and make them. Nothing? Nobody else wants to make a comment? Okay, make a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. Wells, now you can wrap up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll pick up where I left off. We submit that we've satisfied the conditional use requirements here, and with respect to the site plan, again, we think the improvements being made represent a benefit overall to a site that needs some attention. So we think what we've done to the property so far and what we're proposing to do with the additional landscaping requirements, restriping the parking lot to facilitate the ADA requirements, as well as the sidewalk improvements to replace the lifted pieces in the ADA corner ring. Way heavily in favor of this application. Finally, we do submit, again, it's our position, we've satisfied the parking obligation, both through on-site parking via transition from two existing commercial uses. But notwithstanding that, we've gone above and beyond by securing passes for 11 additional spaces. And we've heard the applicant's response to the public question as well, that they will consider utilizing the parking garage as well in the event that becomes necessary. So we would directly request your consideration for approval this evening, and we do appreciate everyone's time.
The one tidy up item I think that we did not address was the prospective road improvement. I had made a recommendation, not a requirement, that the applicant consider a half section mill and repave of their side of the road. The applicant, I believe, expressed that they would not want to do that, prefer to do that, choose to do that. I think the board just needs to weigh in on whether they're okay with that or not. Given the context of the application, it's, in my opinion, it could go either way. Could be included in a future road program or something of that nature. Because of the limited site improvements that they're doing, it might be appropriate that they not do that. I mean, normally it's, if you're doing big improvements, you would 100% do that. In this case, it's again in that gray area of, it would be nice, but I don't know that it would be a deal breaker for the board. You'll have to determine.
If the board were willing to grant approval, would you make a contribution to do that work?
Not knowing what the contribution is would be tough. Again, we understand the conditions and what the board normally asks for. Because our improvements here are limited to the interior, and we're not really touching the exterior except for landscaping, we would really request your consideration for approving this recommendation. Kind of at our end of what we're able to do here. It would be tough. We're open to discussion, of course, but it's tough to agree without knowing what that is.
Okay. Someone else from the board have anything they want to add or want to make a motion?
I just have a question, if I may. I understand not particularly interested in the building of the road, but because you are proposing potentially extended hours here, would you be willing to perhaps increase the buffer with the residential building next door, number 43? It sounds like you have the fence, haven't seen it. The fence extends a little further than it did, but would you consider adding additional, maybe vegetative buffer on that side?
Yeah, and vegetative buffer.
So you're on the southwest corner.
Correct, yeah, so if you're looking at our plan, basically the top right of C2. Correct. Oh, it's not, a foundation plan, something larger.
Something for visibility and maybe even.
All right.
If granted approval, just be sure to submit detail of that plan to our engineer.
Absolutely, yeah, we do have some renderings of the proposed landscaping as well, so that those as part of
Yeah, we certainly don't want it to be too close to the street that it prohibits any visibility.
So, thank you.
So just so I'm clear, are we talking about the Bridge Avenue front or are we talking about the rear?
Bridge Avenue, the southwest corner of the property up against the
Front of the-
residential,
Against the resident.
maybe
Front yard, yeah.
half the distance, maybe half the distance to the curb. To some additional screening to the residential property to the south. Mr. Mileto, right? Is that your house? Yes, come up and speak into the microphone, please.
As far as that, the fence, they had said they would put the fence all the way to the curb to begin with. But I think you said the town wouldn't let you.
Well, Ed will say it better than I will.
Yeah, you can't put a 6-foot fence all the way out to the road for sight visibility and such.
It's gonna do 4 foot. Like the rest, everybody, all the other businesses on the street, they go right to the sidewalk, the fences. Devin had said he would put a 4 foot, he might bring it down to 4 foot to the street, to the curb. I mean, for the sidewalk.
Yeah, we did propose that. It's not approved.
Ed, can they go all the way to the sidewalk?
They probably have to stop at the right of way,
Where?
at the right of way line, the property boundary,
I mean, we could grant.
typically a little bit behind the sidewalk.
Yeah, right to the sidewalk, all the other businesses have it right to the sidewalk.
We can, if we grant this approval, we can require a 4-foot fence as far to the curb as the engineer would allow. There's a right of way beyond the sidewalk. So a combination of the lower fence and the plantings to help mitigate that. Does that help?
What else? I mean, I'm still not.
No, I'm not looking to convince you. I just want to make sure we're on the same page about what they're gonna do. Okay.
So the landscaping would go to buffer the parking area also? Just the structure? Yeah. Is that what we're saying?
Yes. Some other conditions that I have, if the board sees to approve, just to memorialize here, we would obviously do it in any resolution that any garbage is picked up by a private hauler, as you mentioned. You would not allow any queuing on Bridge Avenue of customers. I'm also concerned, I just want to make sure, and you did mention it, that there's no light spillover. Our ordinance is no more than half a foot candle onto the residential property to the south. So that's important from any lighting that you would add.
The lighting that's, would be actually. It is.
Mhm.
Lights are-
Great.
And there's no lights shown on that residential sidewall.
Terrific. I have two other things. I don't know if anyone else from the board has anything else. I would, if I were to vote for this application, require that you would employ all methods, including the virtual queue system, to reduce anyone waiting on property outside of the building. So whatever other methods you can employ in addition to the virtual queue system. So I said, I know you mentioned it was an option. I would make it a condition of approval. And that the employees must park off-site. I'm not gonna say specifically in those 11 spaces because you don't own those spaces yet. But the employees should park off-site and not on public street parking. Granted, the 11 are public. I'm separating those 11 you may lease from my commentary about not parking on Bridge, not parking on Brower. You need to find a place for your employees to park outside of being on site or on street parking. Okay. I don't have any other more comments. Does anyone from the board want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to your requirements. I think it's reasonable.
Thank you, Lou. Does anyone want to second the motion?
Karen Mapuso,
Yes.
Michael Ballard,
I'm okay with the location, yes.
Juanita Lewis.
No.
Lou DiRenzo,
Yes,
Christina Bonatakis.
Yes.
Barbara Willis,
I know.
David Cassidy,
I wanted different hours, I'm gonna say no. Varies.
oh, no.
43-4.
It passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you coming. I know for many of you, it wasn't the result that you wanted, but I very much appreciate your involvement. We have one more application tonight. We have 80 Shrewsbury Avenue, block 39, lots 23 and 24. This is the Borough of Red Bank and the WD zone for a minor subdivision and bulk variances. The applicant proposes minor subdivision and lot line adjustments to subdivide the parcel containing lots 23 and 2 into two separate.
Brett didn't get a chance to vote. She didn't have the, oh, he's an alternate, so he would.
You are?
Oh,
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
I thought you were-
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's the first time I hit one.
All
right, I'm sitting here.
Sorry. Oh,
From alternate,
revoke count.
Art Murphy, from alternate one,
Who else is?
the only other alternate that we got to vote is that, could have been Tommy,
There.
his own alternate.
Yeah.
Should have gotten to vote for Tommy.
Sorry. Okay.
How do you vote, sir? Yes, there we go.
Oh.
Now we go.
No new construction is proposed on the new lot, and additionally, the applicant is seeking bulk variances for minimum lot area and minimum lot frontage proposed on 2401.
Ed, do you want that by you?
Yeah, where's it? What's Mike gonna use that?
You want me to sit at that table?
Oh, I'm just asking, do you want the board by you?
It doesn't matter. I have some handouts I'll do once we introduce.
Closer to him.
Okay, let's
I
go.
put it over here.
Okay, you're up.
I don't, oh. that's-
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for your time this evening. My name is John Burke. I'm with Minnesota Bank Rivera. Our office serves as the borough attorneys for the Borough of Red Bank.
If you could just pull it closer to you, John.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. So as I said, my name is John Burke. I'm with Minnesota Bank Rivera. Our office is the borough attorney for the Borough of Red Bank. Following a council resolution, the borough attorney and the borough engineer made a subdivision application, to preserve the rear area of the senior center for open space. And our ultimate goal is to put this on the borough's open space registry. We are seeking 2 variances for lot size and lot frontage. However, right now, there are currently 2 lots, one that's non-conforming and one that's conforming. And the property.
There's only one lot.
There's only one lot, yes. And it's, basically what we're seeking is to, make the rear area of the senior center into a separate lot that is reserved as open space. There are positive criteria here, to promote open space for public use, promote general welfare, and promote the visual environment. These are all explicit purposes listed under the municipal land use law and the Red Bank Code. There are no negative criteria, as this would not detriment the public good, promote the public good, and rather than impair the intent or purpose of the municipal land use law or the Red Bank Code, it would promote that because open space is explicitly listed as one of the purposes. There's no new construction, there's no new use. We will maintain the senior center as it is and seek to reserve the area behind it, as I stated, as open space. We only have one witness this evening, that's the borough engineer who had a presentation. And thank you for your consideration this evening.
We swear you in again? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. So I have a handout just for ease of reference. I know. Thanks.
And while you're doing that, just by explanation, there are two tax lots, but they merge under the law, under the Lochner case. So there really is only one lot, not two lots.
Right. Try this again. Hey. Okay. So, as previously stated, this is the lot in question. The river is at the top of the plan. Previously, this lot system here was known as lots 23 and 24. Total area of the two lots is roughly 56,000 square feet. The minimum lot area in the zone in question, the WD zone, is 30,000 square feet. So largely, the property line as it existed pre-Lochner, as per Mr. Lechstein, sort of ran down through the center of the building. You had a 50-foot roughly lot to the south, and then the remainder lot was this piece. So interestingly enough, this lot line kind of went through the center of the building. The proposal here today is really a lot line adjustment / minor subdivision to, obviously this would be removed. This line that you see here running generally at the top of bank, well, albeit not exactly. There's sort of an arbitrary line that came to me from some council inputs on ultimately what they were trying to accomplish here. But the net effect is this area here would be preserved. There are no buildings planned, no structures planned. There could be a question about frontage. One of the variance relief variances seeking to get variance relief from is the lot frontage. Generally speaking, lots are required to have access to a street. In this particular case, the statute really talks about building lots and not being able to get a building permit for a lot. So if you wanted to build a building back here and it was landlocked, you technically wouldn't be able to do it without variance relief. Here, this is not actually a building lot. So in this particular case, the way the lot area is worked out, this lot in the front containing the existing senior center building would still be fully compliant. The lot in the back here would be undersized, just a little bit under 16,000 square feet. And the balance of the lot area in the front would be a little under 41,000 square feet, just a little bit under an acre, which would be fully compliant. So really the question at hand, we also were proposing an access easement by way of the northern property line, just to preserve the intended the access that may be required to get to the back lot in perpetuity. Again, the conversation here really is about preserving the rear space along the river. It is noted that it's a very steep drop through there. It goes from, it's probably about a 20 to 25-foot drop from the top of the bank down to the river. So it's pretty steep. Likely wouldn't be able to really build on that lot, even if you wanted to, in terms of regulations and the ability to build. Challenging. So that's largely why we're here tonight. Again, the attorney decided that we were tasked with this exercise by council, asking us to bring this before the planning board for consideration. So, happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple questions for Mr. Byrd. So the law merged these two undersized lots into one. And now we want to break them into two.
In order to preserve.
Let's just clear this up. Those other lots are tax lots. They're not property line lots. They might have been years and years ago, but they're tax lots. And tax lots, you can have 10 of them, but they can only be, if they all merge into one. So this is one lot. By the Lochner.
Right. So I don't understand why we want to subdivide it, make an undersized lot to preserve it for open space when it's a 25-foot steep bank that's open space now.
To make sure that the lot isn't sold, that there's no issue in the future, that the open space is preserved and put to it. And I think to place that lot separately on the open space registry, rather than having to try to issue with the.
I would just differ.
But so if we do that, it puts it on the state registry.
I believe so.
And so that then forever it is encumbered with restrictions by the state of New Jersey. And what do we get in exchange for that if we do that?
We would preserve the open space for the public's use.
But can't the town do that anyway?
I guess
Why, what's the difference between this and a conservation easement?
this is the route that the council directs us to take.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I don't understand why we're undoing what Lochner did and creating an undersized lot for preserving something that is already what it is and is a 25-foot steep bank down into the river that physically couldn't be built on. But I can't imagine the state of New Jersey would ever give a permit to build on.
Well,
Never know.
you never know what the future holds. I can tell you the council's thought behind this was exactly what was explained, is to preserve this as open space in perpetuity, so that we have an opportunity to create park space, which is very rare in Red Bank in a very crowded town. We can preserve this forever. We don't know what the future holds as far as engineering advancements go. So we want to preserve this for our future residents. And that's the only reason we thought this was the best way. I think what was brought up was a potential, you said an easement, a conservation easement.
And I agree with you 100% about preserving space. A conservation easement could do that without giving this up to the state of New Jersey.
But that could be undone, all right?
I think anything, the Rossi could be undone, although much harder to do.
Exactly.
Without a doubt. I just, you know, we gave up Marine Park for Lord knows how little money years ago. And now the Marine Park is on the Rossi. So we can only use parking revenue from Marine Park for specific things. It has to be available for anyone in the state of New Jersey. We're giving this up to the state forever, to them to impose inspections from the DEP and regulations for nothing. And I think we could still preserve it either with and none of this has anything to do with the planning board. I don't love the idea at all of creating undersized lots. And I think there's probably a better way to accomplish what we agree should be done than giving up land to the state, who will never give it back. But the basis of everything I'm talking about here is I don't like the idea of creating an undersized lot that really is inaccessible in any way from something that now, after being merged by law, is a conforming size piece of property. That's just my personal opinion.
Conforming size for
what it is right now. How many millions of dollars did we just spend on this property on behalf of the residents And I'm very glad that we did. I don't like the idea of cutting it up and losing forever full ownership of that to the residents in the Borough of Red Bank. And creating an undersized lot doing it.
Barbara.
You had mentioned. Somebody else is turned on.
Man,
No,
Try again.
Barbara's equally magnetic.
Here.
Speak loudly.
Go ahead.
yeah.
I've got a teacher's voice. I can just,
Give it-
my question is, you had mentioned something about conservation. And I had done some reading also on this, and I thought some kind of a deed restriction, so would be more appropriate for this particular piece of property than putting it on a Rossi, which in order to do anything to it, you have to beg the state for, and you also, if ever you wanted to sell any of it, you have to have a piece of property that's what, 2.5 times bigger than it to replace it in Red Bank. And I can't even find, I don't think there's a lot 2.5 times bigger than that would be available ever. But I want to know if any of the other explanations would make as much sense, because if you have a deed restriction, you still can't sell it. And if you have conservation, obviously that must fall into the same kind of a category as some kind of a deed restriction. So why do we have to, well, I don't know why it has to be bifurcated anyway, but I mean, but if we voted to bifurcate it, what would the advantage of putting it on a rice head? And I don't see one. It will cost a lot more money to do that. It will, and a deed restriction is just either a conservation deed or just a regular deed restriction. Seems to make more sense for the town. And carries pretty much the same weight.
I think rather than characterizing it as giving it away to the state, I would characterize it as a more permanent preservation of the open space. And I understand there's other ways to do this, but like was stated earlier, this is something that would be harder to.
I just have a practical question. What's the role of the zoning board in this? If we vote yes, what does that mean?
First of all, we're the planning board.
I'm sorry. The planning board. I think maybe it should go to the zoning. No, but what does it mean if we vote yes? Does it mean it's on, or does that mean?
We're just here to do a subdivision. And all that we should be focused on is, do we want to subdivide this property into 2 lots? The intention beyond that is for this property to be deeded over to the state, to be added to the state open space inventory.
Is that a role of the planning board to make a subdivision?
100%.
So if we do that, then then the council will go to the state and ask to put it on the Rossi. Is that the idea?
There's a process that, yes, that happens.
But that's the first thing that would have to happen for them to do that.
Kind of the second of several things, the first being the council sending it here in the first place. Yes. But our decision really is based on, do we want to subdivide this piece of property? That's really it. Do we want to take what is a conforming size piece of property now and make it non-conforming?
Is that piece of property accessible by the public? I mean, how do you get there?
It will be, an engineer spoke
You have to
about
go
an
to the
easement.
senior center, or do you go to the
Yeah,
side?
there would be an easement along that.
It would be to the senior center or around the senior center, but I believe the engineer mentioned that there would be an easement to access it.
Is it connected to any Riverwalk thing or anything? Or is it just separate there by itself?
No, that is one of the issues, is that it would be a landlocked parcel.
And if this were to happen and the council were to put this property on the Rossi, and the day ever came where we got funding to do a Riverwalk, would we be allowed to add Riverwalk structure along the water line in this property?
I would think that would be consistent with the open space concept park type use. my expectation is that you'd probably want to get an opinion about that, but I wouldn't see why they wouldn't allow that. That would be consistent with the type of operation that they would expect,
Okay,
something like that.
okay.
And long range planning, if we're thinking, in the future, if we were to set this aside as open space and we could possibly get grant money from the state to put an observation deck on that property to oversee the river. I mean, that's a use that would be consistent with, a Rossi designation for open space use. So again, there are opportunities here for us to create public park in Red Bank, which is, not something that comes along lightly. I understand it's undersized, but and not very accessible, but that's the whole point of it, to preserve the natural beauty of it in perpetuity. So I support it. That's why I supported it at the council. I'll support it here, and I hope the planning board also supports it.
We still own it. I mean, we can still make it a park. I mean, it's still borough property. Does anyone from the board or does anyone from the public have any questions regarding this application? Go ahead.
If this winds up bifurcated on the Rossi, then it's within state control. Would the senior center be limited in how they can utilize that land? Can they, or it's just public land?
I don't believe they would be, but I guess I would go back to the only thing that we're here for today is to discuss the subdivision, and that is our goal ultimately long term is to promote the open space.
So by definition, the Rossi DEP.
Just turn on when it is. Lou, turn off your mic.
By definition, when you have properties under municipal control, at the time, so if it's designated for open space, even if you don't apply to DEP for that consideration, it's automatically implicit in the recreation open space inventory that all properties owned by the borough under control at the time of any kind of a filing are automatically considered as part of that open space, whether specifically indicated or not. We've run into that, in some past cases. So, but basically the reason to separate it would be so that it's separate and distinct from the frontage lot. So that would be the benefit of subdividing it, would be that rear lot then could be its own parcel and would be designated by and separated from the building lot, which wouldn't be encumbered under the Rossi.
Yeah, I've got no objection to preserving that piece of land. If it goes on the Rossi, can the state block public access to that land if it winds up? The state has control. Could they theoretically say we don't like a 25-foot slope and then it's under state control and we have no say in them blocking access, or is part of it going on the Rossi that they have to allow public access?
Generally, there's public access doctrine that would dictate that they wouldn't be able to exclude access.
Okay.
Now, as someone, I think maybe chairman indicated, with the Rossi comes open access to everyone, right? So in theory, you see some cases where you have folks coming from out of town. Some people like that, some people don't care for that. So that's a function of, it's kind of a jewel over there. And if you haven't seen it, you should go take a look at it. It's definitely taking shape out there.
It's not as inaccessible as some people think. It's all the brush.
Just shut that one off.
Like, once all the brush was cleared away by Cindy Burnham and some other volunteers, and the steps are coming into focus, and the accessibility over there that not many knew of, and that it will be usable if we go ahead with this separation.
Will there no trespassing fine be taken down?
What?
That's up to the state.
Which trespass? There are, was I mistaken? I believe that there are signs that say no trespassing at the moment.
At borough property, yes.
Wait,
They come down?
I think they would have to, it's
Okay.
public access.
Okay.
I have a question about that, public access. Good. All right, here we go. If we turn it over to the state, we bifurcate it and we turn it over. And little old lady, me, goes over there for a walk, fall down and break my leg, hip, whatever I'm gonna break. Whose insurance is it, the state's or ours? Just a
I'm
good,
sure it's ours.
I think
The town still owns the property.
right. So what are we getting from the state? What are we actually getting from the state by putting it on the roster? We can bifurcate it, and if we wanted to, we want to. That's a different story, but what are we getting? We're not getting anything.
All right, let's just clear up two things. This is an application for a subdivision. And the speculation and obviously what people want to do is preserve this property for space, which can be, as said, can be done by a deed restriction, can be done by conservation easement. If we're concerned that we really want to do this and want to know, I don't think I've heard what the state can and cannot and would not do. So do we want, if we're thinking about doing the bifurcation, do we want to continue this and find out what the state regulations and permissions are, or are we clear that we can not do this and proceed maybe by conservation easement? That's, I think, the question before the board. I don't think there's any question that this property is going to be preserved as open space, one way or the other.
Just how?
So speaking of questions, I do want to offer the opportunity for anyone from the public, because this is all we've got. You can ask a question or you can make a comment. Ms. Hill, you had or Mrs. Hill, excuse me. You had your hand up first. You're welcome to come up.
Thank you.
I'll have to swear you in again because it's a different application.
Oh, well, okay then.
If we're to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do. I would just like to comment really, John.
Sure.
I've been back there and I urge all of you to go back there and check out the property. It is a jewel. It's a gem. I was there for 30 minutes. I saw all the old egrets down in the marshy area there. There are deer, there are woodchucks. It is a fantastic location and it's beautiful waterfront. I don't care. I'm not you. I don't deal with these issues, but the one thing I want to be sure is that you designate, you do whatever you can so that this cannot be undone. And my understanding, and I may be wrong, is that Rossi was the best way to do that, to ensure that 10 years from now, somebody doesn't decide to do something.
I don't know if that's correct, so that's the problem.
You don't know if it's correct?
What you just said. That it's the best way. So we don't know at this way. But certainly the borough would be in control. If it was a conservation easement, it would run to the benefit of the borough. So if it's ever going to be developed, which seems impossible, it would be the borough that would have to release. But at least the borough would have the control.
But you're saying if it's a conservation easement, the borough could just get out of the easement and develop it.
I think that's easy, I don't know.
It's possible.
Possible, yes.
Possible. It's not easy to do, but yes, it's possible.
But if it's on Rossi,
It's next to impossible.
so the idea, I would say, is we're concerned that some council may come in sometime in the future and decide, maybe we should sell the senior center and make an apartment complex there and have the whole area part of the apartment complex. That's probably, that kind of came up in the past. I don't know how.
That was part of the thought process,
I
yeah.
figured that was part of it. So that would make that impossible.
So that's why the Rossi is the way it's been presented.
Yeah, so the Rossi, yeah, to make it impossible.
Again, to preserve it as open space in perpetuity. That's the key.
And that's what I learned. So. I'm stuck with that.
Okay. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do. Cindy Burnham, 71 Wallace. I
Yeah.
might be able to clear some stuff up for you guys. Okay, so Marine Park is a Green Acre Park. It's Green Acre funded. That means it comes under a lot of rules. Like we're not allowed to permit parking to the hospital, all kinds of things like that. Now, when Maple Cove went on the Rossi, there was no problem with that. Maple Cove is not Green Acre funded. The state doesn't come out and do anything. You know, the state just wants to put land on green acres so that people can enjoy it and to preserve parkland. And that's what this little area is. We're not losing, we're not losing it forever. I mean, it's safer on the Rossi. It's harder to get it off the Rossi than a deed restriction is easy. And Lou, you're absolutely right. If the borough sold the senior center, they can sell the back too. And that's why certain people on the new council want deed restriction as opposed to putting it on the Rossi. As far as the access to the right of way, that is to the right of the senior center, and I believe, and is that 10 feet? Did you ever figure that out?
Yeah, we showed it as 10, just as kind of a, but likely we would probably want to widen that if we went, because the slope as we looked
Right,
at.
because Ed was over there, so I've been cleaning it up with a landscaper. And we took out all the brush, and then we looked at the natural lay of the land, and we got it shored up, and I found the original steps. Oh, you know all this?
All the pictures online are very impressive.
Oh, yeah. But we had a lot of donations and a lot of help with this project. I mean, Red Bank gave us, we redid all the steps with old sidewalk slates, and they're concreted to cinder blocks. And made a little terrace, and I mean, it's just a nice place to go and sit. And like what Ms. Hill said, there's swans and there's ducks with babies, and it's just a nice nature area. And I was over there the other day watering the grass, and there was already a man there, and we were talking, we sat down and talked, and then somebody else came in the public access area, and he had a cup of coffee, and he sat down, and he just sat there and looked at the water and drank his coffee and then left. But it would have a public access sign, and it would have a post and rail fence between the public access and the senior center. And that's where the sign would go. No trespassing, because we want to keep, we want to keep the people off the senior center side, right? So that's where that would go. And it conforms to everything you say in the master plan. We want more open space, we want more access to the river. This would be the only access to the river for public access for the swimming river. So,
Although it is now. Bifurcating this lot doesn't make it anything that it isn't now. That's my point. It is open space now. It is accessible by the public.
it's unprotected.
Well, it's protected. It's owned by the borough.
It's unprotected, just like Lou said,
Okay.
and we had to fight to save the senior center. That was in the works.
A fight worth fighting, without a doubt.
Right, so that's why now we're fighting to save the back end. Because if for some reason the senior center ever does get sold, at least we can maintain the back. And you could still put the river walk. I think that's the worst thing you could ever do.
You always have opinions.
Vandalism is crazy. I mean, look at Riverside Gardens, look at Marine Park, it's all vandalized.
Anybody else?
Okay, so
Come on up.
thank you, I'm done.
Come on up, Nancy.
I swear you again too. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nancy Blackwood, 34 Chestnut Street, thank you for giving me a glad. Should this lot be, well, do you know at this point what the process is at the Rossi in looking at the piece to say whether or not they would accept or reject it? And I think you were alluding to that, that's why you wanted to understand what the requirements were, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know what we know about it. See, we're looking, this is a subdivision application. It's obviously what everybody wants to do is to preserve this property and what's the way and whether the state is any heavy-handed or not heavy-handed. Yes, it's unbelievable that the borough would ever rescind the conservation easement, but yes, that's possible. So I don't know if we know the answers that you're raising. Now, maybe this should be continued till we find out. I don't know.
I think.
Yeah, we can carry this application.
It's possible, something could be taken off the Rossi, again, a difficult process, but it is by theory possible. Just like it would be as a conservation, by theory possible, and we're all talking about a lot of theories, but we're not getting to what we're all agreeing on, which is that we all want to preserve this open space.
Yes.
And we want to do it in a manner that is efficient and effective. And what would, in my humble opinion, would be efficient and effective for the borough is to do a conservation easement or deed restriction for something where the borough maintains full control of the property. And I also say this from the fact that putting on my environmental commission hat, if we wanted to build an osprey nest over there, if this property was on the Rossi, now there's another process to jump through to put up a telephone pole to get a nest for a bird to stay. So, you know, I think it's rather draconian. What is the reason for the split of this property just appears draconian, in my opinion. That's what I have to say about that. Thank you.
So Nancy, I can say that the DEP has been we have been in constant contact at the council level with the DEP. Now, we did not get their measurements of what would be a good bifurcation that they would accept, but they were very supportive of us pursuing this because they get the property. I don't know where they. We get open space. I don't understand. We don't get, but we don't have it preserved. There's nothing to say that the next council or the council after that or the council 20 years later decides that they're going to sell that entire property. And being sloped or not, that there's some development comes up that overhangs that slope, you know, through some engineering feat. There are plenty of them.
Correct.
And we lose all of that. And then everybody says, oh, well, I guess we should have put it on the Rossi. Oh, well.
Oh, well, what if the state says, hey, we're going to reduce our restrictions on the Rossi? I mean, anything can happen. So to me, this is just a draconian method of trying to preserve the open space. I mean, that's my opinion.
Okay, I disagree that it's draconian to create open space. I 100%.
Creating open space. We have alternative means that I feel are more efficient and keep it within borough control. And I think that's important.
Until it's not.
Until the Rossi does something too. It's the same. Okay, I know where this is coming from, and I think we.
Thank you,
can say
Nancy.
this on the record, I was gonna say let that shit go.
I have a question.
Shoot.
When the borough decided to make Bellhaven into a park, I think it did a poor job. Chopped down trees that didn't have to be chopped down. I go there now and it looks sort of like a wasteland. They planted trees, they didn't take care of them, they died. Some trees have been vandalized. It looks pretty sad. It looked better before. And I'm wondering, there's a lot of trees in this area. If it's an easement, could the borough do the same thing there? Just say, well, I think all these trees should go and we'll have a better view from the senior center or something.
Well, actually, I will say that the state of this, the newer state of Bellhaven is actually more in line with what, to my understanding, the recreational open space inventory, the Rossi actually is looking for. The spirit of that is for people, not so much natural habitat. And one thing that I can speak to, that is not theory from my readings of the Rossi requirements, Ms. Burnham, you spoke that yes, if it's not a Green Acres funded property, there are different requirements placed, but there are still requirements and there are encumbrances that come with being on the Rossi. One of them, for example, is that you cannot create natural habitats as in for wildlife. That is not the intention of the Rossi. So we would not have that option open to us if we went down that path. And that concerns me very much. It makes me question seriously if the Rossi is at all the right tool for this. I personally believe that it's not.
But it leaves us open to doing, like I said, chopping down trees and just deciding we need a better view.
Actually, I don't believe that the Rossi prevents us from doing that either.
Well, the R in Rossi is recreation, whatever that means. And I don't know enough about it. And maybe we should carry this and get some more information about our options and what could or couldn't happen.
I have one more question on this. If we were to go with a conservation easement, do we still have to bifurcate this property to preserve it?
No, the conservation easement just a matter of fact, it's all surveyed out now. What we would have to do is say that the area on this map is the conservation, and there are some very strong conservation easements you can and cannot do. I mean, it's an interesting issue about the fact that it can become a more of a nature preserve, and the point is that is the other alternative more for people? I don't know. And so I think we should have just.
Always for open space.
It is, you're right, you're right,
Always for
no, 100%.
recreation, but always for open.
You're right. And I don't know enough about that either, and I feel like I'd like some more information before I made a decision. So that being said, I will make a motion to carry this to our next meeting. I'm sorry, I didn't know Juanita left, so we'll wait a minute. Go ahead, Ms. Hill.
Oh, shit.
I'm sorry, Linda Hill again, 64 McLaren. I assume I don't have to
You don't,
tell the whole truth or anything.
you did it once.
All right. I hear what you're saying and I respect wanting to gather as much information as possible. But as you just said, I think several of you have said, the question before you is to subdivide or not to subdivide, right? It is not your purview to apply for this to be a Rossi or anything like that. Is that correct?
In general, yes. But if I have to make a decision tonight, my vote is no. I'd like to get some more information before I make a final decision. But I'm going to make a motion to carry this. Someone has to second it, and we need a vote of a majority to carry it. And if that doesn't happen, then we'll get to a vote.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Can I just ask, if you're carrying it forward, can you come back with information that says what is the best way to preserve this in perpetuity? I ask you.
We could ask someone for that opinion, yes. I'm certainly not going to render that. I'm going to read what we have and make my unlegally formed opinion.
Got it.
We have a second.
One of the questions is, we
Yeah,
don't agree on how it should be preserved. Should be preserved as recreation?
that's not really our purview. That's up to the council to do.
Well, yeah, but we make the decision on Rossi versus.
We don't. We make a decision.
We allow the Rossi to take place.
No, all we're doing tonight is talking about whether or not we want to subdivide this property. With the information I have right now, I'm not comfortable doing that. I'm willing to carry this to get some more information.
I agree.
So let me get back to that. I make a motion that we carry this application with no further notice to the public to our July, do we have room?
Oh, I have 2 applications on for July.
What's the next one?
May I motion to deny?
Well, let me finish.
To be seconded, which would be.
August 7th. Is there a second to my motion to carry? Not until we get a second or not.
No second.
There's no second, so my motion dies.
So
So
motion to deny now?
Yes.
I will motion to deny it, just to me, it seems like the ultimate why is like a time traveling conspiracy theory, and I don't agree with the tool, so. I would have a motion.
Yeah, but did you have a second?
I second that,
What's the motion?
Before.
deny,
Deny the budget.
deny the budget.
So the vote is yes, means that we're denying the subdivision.
you have some.
And I'm sorry,
We don't legally have to close the public portion of the meeting. You had an opportunity to comment. And a motion and a second has been made.
So because you're gonna be a new body on July first, you have to start from square one.
If there's a vote, the vote tonight stands on its own. Whatever new bodies exist, whether we're here or whoever, that can happen next time. But this is a vote on this application, and as Mike said, a yes vote is to deny the subdivision.
oh, well,
Yes.
No,
Juanita Lewis.
No.
Lou Demento,
yes,
Christina,
Yes.
Marta Velez.
Yes,
Stephen Cassidy.
I just want to be on record. I'm really uncomfortable right now. I don't like the way this, we should have carried this. I don't like the way this discussion went, but I'm voting no.
why didn't you second it, Dave?
Yeah, you could have seconded my motion to carry it.
Is my answer. Any one of us could have seconded it. You know, to be fair, Juanita.
Still has Frederick Stone.
yes. Okay,
It means the subdivision is denied. The application has been denied.
You're all crazy.
open to development.
Development.
Motion to close the, to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
we got a call. Oh, what is it?